what everyone's talking about. It was the WBC. What an absolutely incredible event. 2 weeks of really, it was good baseball. There was some bad baseball. There's no doubt about it, but there was some really good baseball, obviously, with the ending out of essentially out of a storybook. It would have been better for us American fans if, maybe it was, ended differently, but my goodness, what an end to it was. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani wins MVP. And I'm just going to say this right now. I've pretty much been saying this since we've done the podcast and since I saw Shohei Ohtani. He is the best player in baseball, and it's not close. I love you, Mike Trout. I love you, Manny Machado. Aaron Judge, stay healthy, and you're on that stratosphere as well. But you're not in the same league as Shohei Ohtani. This is a guy who can throw 100. I mean, he had the hardest hit ball of the tournament, and he had the hardest pitched ball of the tournament. The defense rest. I will also say, I think the Japanese development of young players, we see it in the Little League World Series. And obviously we see it on the international stage. And I think we really saw it in this WBC. They develop players so much better than the American side of things. And I don't really know what it is. I can look at the American side of things. I can look at travel ball. I could look at kind of the specialization of, oh, he's 7 years old. He's a really good baseball player. He can't play any other sports. I think that's just terrible take, but I really do think that happens. You get into that specialization of things. But looking ahead for Team USA, I think the best way for the Americans to get back on top of the WBC stage, if you will, is they're going to need to get some more participation out of the superstar pitchers. As good as that lineup was, the pitching staff was not great. I love Nick Martinez. I think he's a fantastic, Padre. Love the story of what he's been able to put together, but he should not be in your starting rotation when you have the lineup that the U.S. does. I'd love to see a DeGrom, a Scherzer, a Verlander, a Kershaw. All of them would be great. Two of them would be okay as well. But I think that eventually helped or held back the Americans. And I think we just saw the Japanese pitching staff was just far superior, and they proved it in that last game. But Japan is champions of the WBC. Brianna, what was your favorite moment of the WBC?
Before I get to that, I'm going to go off your point really quickly.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember, but Kershaw was originally
Yeah.
in that lineup, and then he backed out.
It
There were
was
a
an
lot of
insurance thing. I think the Dodgers didn't want to waive the 500,000. I forget what it was, but essentially they said you can go, but if you get hurt, I don't know the exact intricacies, but yeah, he did pull out late.
so there was a lot of pitchers who were slated and then just backed out at the last minute. So they had to scramble trying to figure out their starting
But
pitching lineup.
other
Part
teams
of it.
didn't really have that. I mean, right? Like Mexico had their best pitchers going, Japan had their best pitch. I felt like it was just a USA situation, which was really unfortunate.
Maybe they just wanted to focus more on the spring training aspect, especially for those that were coming back from injury, like Tommy John's, my guess. So then they had more time before they pitched against like competition like that, because we all know how international competition is different than spring training.
Well, they're scared then.
That too. I told you I was scared of Japan.
Yeah, no, you called it from when we did the first time we talked about the WBC. You said Japan was going to win it. My pick didn't even get out of group play. So, what do I know?
Look, some quite a few of those lineups were scary, but none were scarier than the Japanese roster, and that's without Otani. Like, and I'm going to say you Darvish didn't have the greatest of time, and I know that you guys would have preferred he had some starting time, but coming in relief, and obviously I wasn't expecting Otani to come in relief, but honestly, I kind of appreciate it. Um, but going off of that, my favorite moment, honestly, was the final out of the game. You had two of the best players in baseball going up against each other, current teammates in Ohtani and Trout ends up striking out. And if you saw the interview afterwards, Ohtani didn't think that Trout was going to be the final out. He didn't
Yeah,
think that there were going to be two outs when Trout came up. So Ohtani was just as surprised and then struck him out on the what was it, sinker
it was a
lone
slider, I think, 3
slider.
2 slider. Incredible pitch.
But yes,
after
that's my favorite moment.
yeah, I think you're probably a majority of people, that's what we're going to remember.
As an Angel fan, though, that is
Definitely,
definitely my favorite.
definitely. I mean, the 2 fastballs that Trout got, were both at 100, and both were, obviously, besides the miles per hour, they were very hittable pitches, very much in the zone, and that 3-2
He was just
slider.
I know he was just underneath that second one too.
Yeah,
Like, if
he
you looked at the replay, he
mhm.
was right un he was just right under it.
Well, and then also for Ohtani to essentially throw 2 fastballs right by Trout, and for him then to go, "You know what? 3-2, I'm going slider." That shows some cojones, and Shohei didn't change my mind. Didn't really matter what happened in the WBC in my mind. He is the best player of this generation, and I think probably ever. He just has an unfair advantage. He can do things that most people didn't, and I know we call him the modern day Babe Ruth, but Babe Ruth only pitched for 2 years. Once they looked and went, "Whoa, this guy can hit," get him off the mound. That's not the case with Ohtani. They want to use him in all situations. I cheated for the best moment because I couldn't really. I mean, I did pick, but I picked five. Because like I said, I cheated unfortunately. But we talked about number five last week. It was Duque Hebert. I probably absolutely demolished that name, and I do apologize. But he was, of course, the Nicaraguan pitcher who struck out Soto, J Rod, and Rafi Devers. And then an hour later was signed to a minor league contract for the Tigers. I mean, what a great story that was. I thought fourth was the Czech Republic beating China, a team of essentially guys with day jobs taking down. Now, China is not a very good team, but still to beat essentially professional players. Now, they're not in the majors, but they're playing in Korea, they're playing in Taipei, they're playing in Japan. For the Czech Republic to go out and get a win over China, I thought that was great.
Not only
My
that, one of them struck out Ohtani.
well, that don't spoil it just yet. Yes,
Oh, I
definitely.
didn't know!
Yeah, that's okay. Number three, I have as Mexico versus Japan, the semifinal walk off. Hats off to Mexico. I was very wrong about the Dominican Republic. I thought they were going to win it all. Very wrong, but I did kind of one of the teams I said, keep an eye on was Mexico,
I
and
thought they were
they
gonna win that game.
yeah, they essentially, well, there were no outs when they not walk off, but they were 3 outs away from eliminating the eventual world champ for Mexico. What a fantastic performance from Mexico, but also a fantastic game. Mexico versus Japan. What a fantastic atmosphere and a fantastic ending to that semifinal. Number two is Ohtani striking out Trout to end the WBC. But for me, it is number one, it's the electrician. And here's another name I'm going to absolutely butcher. Ondrej Satoria. He strikes out Shohei Ohtani on a 72-mile-an-hour changeup. And I think that's what's great about baseball, right? And I was talking to one of my buddies about this, and he's not a huge baseball fan. And he kind of looked at me and he goes, "Well, essentially an electrician struck out the best baseball player in the world. Like, that's not a good look for baseball." I say that's actually false. I think it's a fantastic look for these guys, and obviously for Satoria, or excuse me, however it is pronounced. That is something. I mean, he will tell his grandchildren about, and even with the Czech Republic not being a huge baseball crazed country, they know who Shohei Ohtani is over there. It's essentially, you know, uh, Lionel Messi getting put on his rear end by a Sunday league player, if you want to look at it from a soccer point of view. But I thought that was, for me, the best moment of the tournament, was seeing that kind of exchange between the best player in all of baseball and maybe ever. It just shows that baseball, no matter what, still a game of failure. Even when you are as good as Shohei Ohtani, it doesn't matter. You could go up against somebody like that, and I don't want to say made a fool of, but it was not the prettiest swing Shohei Ohtani will ever want to look at. But those were mine,
He's
fantastic.
constantly swinging for the fences, okay?
Oh yeah, but and I
He was
do think
swinging for
you
fence.
when you deal with, and this isn't a knock on Ohtani, this is more a pat on the back to the Czech team and the Czech Satoria who got the job done. But I think also, you know, when you're Shohei Ohtani, you're seeing 95 plus all season. Even in the WBC, you're probably seeing the best pitchers. So yeah, when you see 72 miles an hour, that timing, that's tough to get used to. I'm pretty sure if Ohtani gets 2 or 3 more at bats against him, he's probably taking him deep, but not in that situation. That for me was my number one moment in the WBC. But moving on to the winner's circle, obviously, as we get closer to the season beginning, not a whole lot of news to break down, but